What's going on, everyone? In today's episode, I'm thrilled to be joined by Jeff Alberts. Jeff is widely known throughout the natural bodybuilding world. He's an established pro natural bodybuilder, having placed top 5 at WMBF World's Natural Bodybuilding Competition multiple times. He is one of the original founders of Team 3DMJ, and he's also one of the best natural bodybuilding coaches in the world. This episode was a ton of fun to record. Jeff has been my natural bodybuilding coach since late 2022, so it was really cool to get to hear firsthand so much of the wisdom that he shares throughout the episode to get a better understanding of the bodybuilder and coach who's been helping me over the years. I know you are going to absolutely love this episode, so without further ado, let's dive in. So you're prepping right now. How many preps have you done? What number is this?
I want to say this is 15 or 16. And then if we toss in maybe a couple failed preps as well. So it's getting up there. Yeah.
15, 16.
That's a lot of time
preps.
dieting. Yeah.
Have you found anything about this prep that's different compared to the 15, 16 other ones that you've done?
Protocol wise, I mean, it's like more the same. I think things are predictable from that perspective because, I mean, obviously when you've done 15 or 16 preps, you kind of know what works for yourself. The difference with this one is it's probably the hardest prep I've had in a long time from a mental standpoint. And the reason I say that is at this stage of the career, because I have done so many preps, I have kind of gone to worlds a few times now, done quite well. It's almost like it's losing its fire now. It's not as exciting for me. It's not as, I don't have the same passion, I would say. So there's kind of that I've been struggling with. And then there's been some life circumstances as of late that's just made it really challenging. My wife lost her brother a couple of weeks back. So that obviously kind of threw things off as far as the bodybuilding world, which is totally understandable. And I just know my role now and within the family. It's like, I'm needed more. I'm needed more to be even a better leader than I already was. So it's taken some bandwidth away from the bodybuilding world. So I've actually kind of pivoted the way I've been executing the prep. Because prior to that, it was like, I'm tracking things, I'm getting all my steps in, just doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And now it's like those things are stressing me, like to put things on a food scale and put it in a food. It seems minimal, but it's just like when you're going through a life event like this, it takes its toll. It's taken an emotional and mental toll. Like my energy's got to be allocated, like to my wife, of course, to her parents, to my son. It's just, I got to be present for a lot of people right now. So just putting things on a food scale, I'm like, man, I just don't want to do this. So I've been leaning more towards experience, daily habits, and just, okay, I know how to create a deficit just by eyeballing at this point because of that experience level. It's not something I would say, hey, someone new to the game would want to do, but that's just relieved some of the stress. And then same thing on the training side of things. That's been therapeutic, because I've been still ensuring I'm getting my training in for my own mental well-being. Just moving things A to B just feels good to release some stress, but I'm not like logging anything. I'm not stressing on the numbers, the performance. I'm like, okay, just move A to B, get close enough to failure, to failure. Okay, that's a stimulus, and then move on. And then step count's been off because I need time for family. So it's like if I can get some steps in, I just move faster. Because I might not be able to get an hour in. I might get 20 minutes in or 30. I'm like, okay, just go fast. So I'm kind of get expenditure that way. And I just been kind of compensating with diet. Like, okay, let me just eat less than I normally would. And then that way I can, create the deficit. So I'd say it's just from those perspectives, it's been super challenging. And on one side of the sword, it's kind of like I question, like, should I even finish this thing out? It's because of the stress. I'm like, but then the other side of the sword, I'm like, I kind of enjoy the challenge of not tracking and kind of just seeing like, can I finish this prep out in this capacity? So that part is kind of igniting a little fire in me. And yesterday, actually, I broke below 180 pounds for the like second or third time, I think it was, but like an official 179. I'm like, okay, this is where things get interesting for me with prep, because every half pound I lose at this point is going to get magnified. So I'm getting close now. I'm like, okay, I'm about 9-10 pounds away. Like I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. But I would say, yeah, even at this stage, being in the game for like competitive bodybuilding for over 30 years, like this is probably one of the hardest preps I've had.
Yeah.
And then physically too, like I'm an older body, so it's like I got more aches and pains I'm dealing with. So physically, it's a little bit more challenging as well. But I see that as another challenge. Like this is exciting because I'm working with an older body. Can I still get to a world class level with a 54-year-old body? So that part's kind of exciting too, but it has been quite challenging.
Something that I am really curious about, and you've touched on it, is that the element of it being more of a mental struggle, in the sense of some of the fire that was there in the past isn't there now. So I'm wondering that, in addition to the the stuff with your family, so your wife's brother passing and having to maneuver and be flexible with the structure of your prep and that all being different. I'm wondering what do you feel it is that's keeping you driven to keep competing or keep prepping? Especially considering you've done 16 or 17 up to this point already, and it's like there's there's nothing that's necessarily telling
Yeah,
you like you have to be doing this again. You've
exactly.
done it. You've done well in Worlds. You've come top 3 at Worlds at least 3
Top
times,
four.
right?
Top four.
Top 4,
No, top
top
four
4. Yeah,
once. I've been top five twice. That's probably a better way to say it.
got
Never
it.
been better than four though,
Got it.
which is still
Okay,
pretty.
so
It's still pretty good,
it is yeah, it's the dream for
Yeah,
most natural competitors. But yeah, you've had an incredible career, and there's nothing saying that you have to be doing this again. So what do you think it is that, like, if this is the 18th, 17th or 18th prep, that is driving you to do this, follow through with it, even though there's a turbulence that has been going on, like life's been kind of tough from what you've described. Like, what's keeping you going?
it's a great question. It's a question I've asked myself, and I actually like had this conversation with ChatGPT. And like early in the morning, have my cup of coffee or it's peace and quiet. I'm like, why am I still wanting to do this? And I would just type my thoughts into it. Of course, it would give you a little feedback, and you just from that feedback, you keep talking back. And yeah, like I don't fully know yet, to be honest with you. There's moments where there's slight fire. I'm like, yeah, let's get after it, and then that kind of fades. And then there's moments where I'm like, okay, the other coaches are competing as well. And we've never been on the same stage at the same time. And we've known each other for 15 years. We've had like myself, Brad, and Alberto's been on stage together. I've been on stage with Eric, but never all four of us at the same time. And I just don't know if we're going to have this opportunity again, because you just never know. Like I might not want to do this again. Um, knock on wood, injuries can happen to anybody. Life circumstances can change for, any four of us. So it's like this seems like it might be the opportunity to do that. And I don't want to have regrets. Like I didn't finish it out. I didn't get that experience. So there's that, but I also know they're very understanding. And if I said, hey, I just don't have it in me to finish this out, they're not going to be like, oh, come on, dude. They'd be fully supportive. They would fully understand. So I don't have that pressure from them to keep going. It's more internal pressure. I know I don't need to prove anything to anybody else, because I'm pretty well established as as far as 3D muscle journey and all that. I don't think anybody's going to like, oh, he didn't need prep again at 54, so he's a bad coach or anything. So there's not that hanging over my head. I think a lot of it could be just regret. Like there's that regret feeling of like, if I don't finish this out, then I'm not going to have answers either way. And I think that's what I'm very open to, is the unknown, because that's where you learn the most about yourself. Whether things go good or they go bad, you learn in the unknown. And I think a lot of times people fear the unknown, like something, oh, some people are scared to even compete for the first time. I don't know if I can compare. I don't know if I'm going to get shredded enough. Like, so they're always like, I'm going to get bigger first. Like, you've probably heard a lot of people say this. I need more size, so I'm going to wait. 10 years down the road, they're still saying the same thing. They're never getting their feet wet. So I just like, okay, let me just take it one day at a time and not get too much into my feels one way or another, because it's easy to ride a high. Sometimes you get a little too cocky and arrogant, and there's other times when you're really low and then you beat yourself up. So I try to just keep myself pretty even through the ups and downs, and I just keep going forward, like one day at a time. There'll be some good days, there'll be some average days, bad days, but just keep going forward. And that's what I've been doing. And we'll see. It's like, I'm very excited to see how it plays out. And I'm not going to assess in the moment. I'm not going to assess right after the season's over with. I'm just going to allow myself to reflect over time to get more clarity as far as if this is something I truly enjoyed or want to continue to do. So I'm just keeping myself just open to anything.
Right. Well, it's interesting in that it's true that so many people do have that fear of the unknown, but I just think it's interesting that you kind of flip it upside down on its head and think it's almost scarier potentially at the same time of not getting to find out the unknown. It's like the
Yeah,
opposite kind of a thing.
right. I'd rather try and give something an honest shake and fail versus like never even exploring it, because you don't get no answers by not exploring. And that's the thing. Everybody wants answers ahead of time, right? Hey,
Yeah.
Sam, how many sets should I be doing? I don't know. You're like, I don't know. It's like until you actually do something, that's when you get your answers. And I think a lot of people are looking for permission to do things. Whereas it's like, why are you seeking out permission? Just get in there and do it. And don't get in trouble, of course, but do something and then get that experience. And then that's how you basically end up, working closer to self-mastery.
Right. Keeping all of this in mind, do you find now on this prep that there are days, and I suspect the answer to this is going to be yes, but the question is, do you find that there are days where you're in the thick of things, you're having those tough days, like you need to be there for your family, you're trying to adjust the structure of your prep, kind of putting you outside of your regular comfort zone, even though we're never really in our comfort zone in prep anyways,
Right.
but you're kind of forced to step outside of that and get even more uncomfortable. Are there days where you're just like, man, like I don't know how I'm going to keep going, or you look ahead and you're like, I have X more weeks until my first show day, like I've got so much more time being in the thick of this, it's going to be tough. Do you ever have days where you're like, oh man, this sucks? And if you
Mm-hmm.
do, what keeps you, do you have anything to fall back on to keep you like putting one foot in front of the other? Is that what the strategy is? You just like stay in the moment. It's like, okay, one foot in front of the other, get through this, just
Mm-hmm.
get to the next day. Or what's your process with that?
I'm
Especially having done being so
yeah,
experienced with this.
I'm human just like anybody else. So I have my days where it's like I feel great, motivated. It's an easy day, fired up. There's other days where it's like average. There's other days where it's like, yeah, what am I doing here? Like, I feel like shit. I need my energy, elsewhere. Like, is this really worth it? And what am I trying to prove here? Like, all those thoughts kind of go into my head, in the moment. But then I don't react erratically to it. Like, it's with your emotions, it's easy to, like, whatever emotion you're feeling in the moment, you're making decisions based off of that. I've learned not to do that. I mean, there's times here or there where I might do it because I'm human, but I've done a really good job over the years of like taking that step back in the moment and kind of thinking rationally, like, okay, today's a bad day. Let's not make it worse by like, oh, I'm going to eat some extra food for comfort. Or yeah, I missed a workout. It's the end of the world now. Like, okay, my it's gone. It's like I take that step back and go, okay, what's the worst thing that can happen if I have an off day? As long as I'm not making an off day worse by making poor decisions, like nothing. It might delay the outcome a little bit, possibly, but if you've planned well in advance, it's a non-issue. That's the thing. So if you plan well in advance, if you set up your prep properly, then it's not a big deal if you have an off day here or there. But if you're under the gun, the closer you get to a show, obviously the pressure is going to intensify. And when pressure intensifies and you're emotional, then yeah, you're more prone to making those types of emotional decisions that aren't going to go in your favor. So I try to always take that step back, look at the bigger picture, and it usually ends up working out pretty well for me.
Yeah. I feel like what you've just described is a skill, and it's something that, like, for me, I'm thinking of, like, my first couple preps, like, I really struggled with being able to take a step back and, like, evaluate, like, what's the worst that's gonna happen if I have to move a workout around, or if I have to change my nutrition parameters, a meal, or eat out with my family or something like that. Like, I feel like I've had to learn that skill from doing more preps, and it's taken time, and I'm still working on it. So, I'm wondering, from your experience, do you feel the same way? Like, is that what you've just described, that process of being able to take a step back and look at things from a wider perspective? Is that something that took time for you to learn? Is it something that, like, someone else taught you, or is it something that you kind of figured out from trial and error after having prepped so many times? Or
All the above.
what was the process in which you learned that?
All the above. I mean, you take 30 years worth of competitive experience, you're gonna, get a feel as far as like yourself. But also, like my early days, I was like self-taught, made a lot of mistakes. And of course, meeting the other guys here at 3D Muscle Journey back in 2009, 2010, started to learn more through them. But I think as bodybuilders, especially as competitive bodybuilders, when we first start out, we're very hyper focused on perfectionism. And if we're not like staying true to a specific structure that, wherever we learn a structure, it's like, oh, okay, I learned from this guy over here on the internet. It's like, okay, that's the way he does it. I should be doing exactly like that. And anytime you deviate from that, you're like, oh no, I just made a mistake. Okay, I'm setting myself back, or I'm not making as much progress as I should be. But over time, once you start exposing yourself to more flexibility, you start to get more comfortable with it, because in a sense, this goes back to being okay with exploring without having fear, because you're going to learn like, okay, yeah, I did something totally different that's going against what this person says, or what maybe just the masses say, like this is what should be optimal, and you're like, no, I'm doing this other thing that's going against the grain. Then you're like, oh, it actually worked. I saw progress. And then you're like, okay, you're more like accepting to it, because it's proven for yourself that it does work. Let's say it goes the opposite way. It's just, wow, that was really bad. It's like, okay, now you know not to do that again. So you just check that off the list. But then you have to be willing to try something else that's different than what you've always kind of done. That's how you get dogmatic, is you just do things the same way over and over and over again without exploration. So you just, again, it's like you have to be very open-minded and be okay with like mistakes, especially if you're paying attention to them. If you're not paying attention to them, yeah, it's trouble. You're going to keep making the same mistake over and over again. But you make a mistake, okay, I made that mistake. You're paying attention to it. Okay, now let's deviate. Let's try something else.
I'm curious about the earlier competitive Jeff. So, let's say the first half of the
Young
17
Jeff.
preps that you've done.
Yeah.
The younger Jeff, yes. I'm curious what it would have looked like, you prepping for the first half of those preps. And also to get some context, what year was it, and at what age were you when you won your pro card?
I was 38 when I won my pro card in 2009. And that was
38.
after, yeah, because I started competing in 93. So it's like 16, 17 years later
Wow.
where I actually got a pro card. Now, granted, I didn't even know what a pro card was in the 90s. Like, I didn't even know what natural bodybuilding was until the late 90s, because back then there's no internet. So it's like, whatever information I'm getting, it's from Flex Magazine, Muscle and Fitness. It's like from the magazines. I didn't know about shows until I saw a flyer at the gym wall, on the gym wall. And the first time I competed, I was like, oh, there's a show in 6 weeks. I think I want to do that. So it's like I got 6. So there was no planning per se, like an off-season game plan or, setting up a 2-year trajectory or any of that. Like I had no clue. And back then it wasn't like prep coaches were abundant, You're just getting information from the magazine. You get information from maybe, the local gym dudes. That was about it.
Right. Well, that's interesting. I'm wondering, so considering like you weren't necessarily, especially at the beginning, like doing it to get a pro card. Were you doing it with any particular goals in
I
mind? Like,
wanted to
did you just
win.
want to get on? Okay.
I wanted to
Okay.
win. There's
Yeah.
the local show. Like I lived in Fremont, California. The show there was the Mr. Fremont, and it was pretty prestigious at the time because the gym that I went to, the promoter or the gym owner promoted that show. Well, he knew Ed Corney. I don't know if you know who Ed Corney is, but he was
He's
the
in
head.
Pumping Iron, isn't he?
Yeah, he's
At
in
least he's
Pumping
like
Iron.
posing with
He's the
Schwarzenegger.
dude that Arnold said, like, that's what I call
That's
posing.
great
So
posing.
Ed
Yeah.
Corney at the time was considered like the best poser. He was the head judge of that show. He won the first Mr. Fremont back in, I think it was like 1965. So there's a lot of history of that show. Just a lot of prominence in the area with that show. It was at the golf club. So it was like in the country club there. It was kind of fancy. People would wear, like dress up, suits, dresses, that type of thing. So I was like, and it was always in the paper, newspaper. Back then it's a newspaper, not like it is today, social media. So it's like, I want to do that show and I want to win. So that was like, and I was like obsessed with that. Like I wanted to win. I wanted to get my name in that newspaper. I wanted the notoriety. So I was driven, very driven. And because of that hyper focused, basically, yeah, as far as like being flexible with life, like what is that? Like that, there was no flexibility whatsoever. And I think just that mindset, that approach to the sport, obviously it hurt relationships, things like that. But yeah, I mean, I did the first Mr. Fremont in 93 as a junior, and I won junior Mr. Fremont. That was probably the worst thing that happened to me, to be honest with you, in hindsight, because my head just went, it inflated, and it reinforced the approach to bodybuilding. Like, okay, this works. All right. So I started becoming very dogmatic in the approach. Did the Mr. Fremont again next year, won the short class, almost won the overall. Again, head's even more bigger now. And then in 95, I'm like, okay, this is the year. And it was going to be the final year because the promoter was retiring. I'm like, oh, this is the final year of Mr. Fremont. I got to win this thing. And I ended up taking second. And I lost to a dude that probably outweighed me by about 20, 25 pounds. Because I lost, and because I believed I should have won, because for 3 years, no one's outworking me. You know, that mentality of like, you just think you're the hardest worker. So I thought, oh, I deserve to win. And of course, you look at the photos later, you're like, yeah, Jeff, you lost. There's just no way you're beating that guy. But in my brain at the time, when I got announced second, I was like pissed. And then walking off stage, verbally saying I got robbed. I was so immature. It's just like, so that was like, and what's crazy is after that, I still had that same approach and mindset. It took years to get out of that.
So this was 95, and then it wasn't until 2009 you won the pro card. So it was another 14 years
Yeah.
between then. So
I took 2 years off of that because I was burnt out. Imagine competing
right.
3 years in a row.
What do you think?
I was done. I needed a break. Like I remember saying, like my ex-wife used to drive her crazy because every season it would end, I go, I'm retiring. And then she just finally started realizing, like, no, you're not. No, you're not. So it's just this repetitive thing. So 98, 99, 2000, competed again. 99, like 99, 2000, when I started learning, like I did my first natural show in 99, and
Yeah.
that was the Capital City, which is now known as the California Muscle Mayhem. Um, and then basically 2000 was like the first year I was like, oh, okay, I'm actually going to try for this pro card thing.
Right.
So 2000, 2002, 2004, 2006, all attempts at trying to get a pro card and didn't get it. Came close, but didn't get it. Got burnt out again after, like in 2008, told my ex-wife saying that I'm retired, I'm done. I go, what's the point of this? I keep coming up short. I'm putting myself through hell because the approach was so rigid. So I'm like, for what? And then after some time, my ex-wife's uncle, he's a doctor, very adventurous guy, does a lot of like mountain climbing, all this like adventurous stuff. He's like, why don't you approach it differently? He's like, why don't you like start a blog, share your journey? That way people can maybe learn from you and just roll with it, have fun. And I'm like, nah, I'm retired, right? So, but the seed was planted. So, I thought about it, kept thinking about it. I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm gonna change the approach. So 2009, when I prepped, it was like the priority was just having fun, just having a great time. I was still rigid with the approach, don't get me wrong, but the mindset shifted from being highly competitive to just like, I just want to enjoy this.
Can you share how that shift in mindset it affected your practical approach? So prior to that point, you mentioned like you're quite dogmatic since having won that very first show. It was
Mm-hmm.
93.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, it was like, hey, what I'm doing, it works, so I'm going to keep sticking with it. And you did pretty well for those first 3 shows, even though you got
I
second,
kept
which is
doing
still
well,
awesome.
yeah, even up into the late 90s. Like I was like, I
Yeah.
would win, I'd get some class victories, close to getting overalls. And it's like, okay, it just reinforced the dogmatic way. Cause like, oh, I keep winning. I keep winning.
Well, yeah, so I guess that's what I'm curious about. What was the dogmatic way? You mentioned rigid a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
Like, can you describe what the difference in practice was between the rigid dogmatic approach
The old
compared
school
to
mentality, right? So it's like I've
yeah,
been at my nutrition is the same foods every single day, same time of the day I'm eating. Like everything was like very routine, very structured, no deviation hardly from that. So if it's 9 in the morning, I'm eating at 9 in the morning. If my wife wants to go out for dinner, like, nope, I'm not going out to eat. I've got to eat my meal at home. It's got to be these foods. If she did get me out of the house to go eat, then it's like, okay, I'm bringing Tupperware or I'm having a Diet Coke. I'm not eating nothing. So it's just very rigid and dogmatic that way. And then training, same thing. There is no way you can, like, I was not missing training sessions. It was very rare that I was going to miss a training session. The only compromise I made during the 90s, 80s, 90s was like, I didn't train on the weekends. I just freed my weekends up. But during the week, no, I'm not missing shit. Because it's like, hey, I'm not missing out on progress or I'm not regressing. So just very hardcore approach in a sense.
yeah. How did that
Because if you didn't,
can you
you're not going to win, right? That's the mentality.
yeah.
Like if you don't do these things, then you're not going to be at your best. You're not going to reach your full potential. You're not going to give yourself the best opportunity to win. So it's like I was, I was very hardcore. So it's very different than what you see Jeff for the last 15 years on the internet now.
Stark difference.
Yeah, but
Very it is so interesting getting to knowing you
that
now and
so
getting to hear about
yeah.
what you were like. It does seem like such a
So all
crazy
those
difference.
experiences is formed Jeff of now because those are like dark days of bodybuilding for me.
How did you how did that approach affect, like, your social life, your family life? And it extended for a while, like 15, 16 years of that
Mhm.
dogmatic, rigid approach. How did that kind of impact the world around you or yourself internally? What was that like?
I'm an introvert by nature, so I'm not a social person. Like I'm not, hey, I'm going to a party. It's like I'm not like that. Um, so bodybuilding was actually perfect, right? Because it's a sport you can isolate yourself in. I'm like, oh, this is cool. I train alone. I diet alone. Everything I do is alone. And I don't need anybody else to help me out with this, because coaching wasn't a thing back then. And also, if we flash back to my childhood, coming from divorced parents, kind of being isolated in that capacity, I kind of just learned like I need to do things on my own because I didn't want to rely on like my dad or my stepdad or anything like that. So it's just like I never learned how to ask for help. So it's like I got to figure this shit out on my own. And so in a sense, I was just way too isolated. And that's part of how I got very dogmatic, because I just didn't get exposure to other people, other ideas. And even if I did, I wasn't very open to it. Because unfortunately, Mike Mentzer and Dorian Yates is hit, not saying it's a bad philosophy or training approach, because I did see some good progress on it. But I think a lot of bodybuilders probably relate to this. When you make progress with the first structure you get introduced to, you think that's how things should be. Like this is like, I thought, okay, I made all these great gains off a HIIT coming off of a higher volume approach. I'm like, oh, I got the answers now. This is it right here. So for 16 years, 17 years, this is how I trained. Anybody that would challenge that, I would be like, nope, you guys don't know what you're talking about. I made all these gains of that. So just in a sense, you just get into a bubble. So that took a lot to kind of come out of that. But yeah, that approach all through my 20s, even deep into my 30s, very, very dogmatic, very dark, and just life outside of bodybuilding was just very challenged because of how I approach bodybuilding.
Right.
And you don't hear about these things too much on the internet. You go on Instagram or whatever, it's like everybody's kind of painting a good picture, or everybody's telling everybody else how to do something.
Yeah. Well, I think it is really helpful to get to hear this. I know for me personally, from what you've described, that there's almost an attractive element to prepping and bodybuilding, and that it can be a totally solo sport where you can kind of just like focus on yourself, cave yourself in, be dogmatic, and just like kind of focus on doing your thing without having to rely on anyone else. Like I can relate to that. That was
I
something
enjoyed that. Yeah, I enjoyed that part of it. It's like yes, there was a dark time, but at the same time, I learned so much as well about myself. I don't regret any of this. Like I'll share this all day, any day, because all the experience I've gone through, the harder times like this, it's molded me to be a far better coach.
Yeah.
Like I'd rather, like if I'm like right now, because I'm way at the tail end of my career, like let's say I was looking for a coach. Am I looking for a coach who has maybe 1 year, 2 years under the belt with minimal experience, or someone like myself who's gone through like a lot of shit, especially life stuff too? I'm not going to ask a 20-year-old to coach me that maybe has never been married, doesn't have kids. Like, how do they relate to someone like myself? So it's just, for me, it's like I look at more than just like, oh, this guy won a title last year, okay, this makes him a great coach. It's more like, okay, I want to see like what's the history there, like what's the actual experiences. So I think it's like, for me, it's valuable that I've gone through all that, because now I get to say like, hey Sam, let's not do what I did back in 1993. Let's maybe do it X, Y, and Z. Let's explore those avenues and see which one works best for you.
Yeah. Well, I can speak to that being so valuable because I know from experience that you have helped me specifically with those kind of things. Like I'm the kind of personality that is in danger of falling into that kind of thing too, like becoming so caved in that I kind of say no to everything social, all friend stuff, all family stuff. I know I'm kind of, if I push things too far, like I'm totally capable of doing that. And I think that around the time that you and I started working together, when you started helping me, was like it could have gone either way kind of at that point. And you helped me helps to steer me in the right direction after having learned from your everything that you've described, those earlier preps that you did. So I can definitely speak to that being something that's been like super, super valuable to me personally. And after having listened to you in so many podcasts, even before that, when going into your 2009 season, this was when it was a family friend that mentioned that, like, hey,
It
why don't
was
you just like
yeah, it was
have
my wife's
got it,
ex-wife's uncle. Yeah.
got it. This was when he suggested, like, hey, why don't you have a little bit more fun with it, maybe be a little bit more flexible.
Hmm.
You mentioned that kind of planted a seed. Was it the kind of thing where like you thought it about it for a little bit, like before you started the prep itself, and then
Yeah.
you just you thought about it for a bit and you're like, okay, screw it, I'm just gonna have fun with this? Or was it like it kind of it was really difficult to weed out the past dogma that was so
Yeah.
deeply ingrained in you? Or
I
what was
was
that like?
Yeah, I was burned out for one. Like I just think from competing, like in hindsight, it's like I competed so much. Like 93 through 95, it's 3 seasons in a row. Took 2 seasons off, then it was three in a row. Or at the time, yeah, it was like three in a row. Then it was just so much competing for quite a few years. I was kind of burned out. And even my ex-wife's like, why do you like, because I thought like, hey, I'm thinking about doing it again, maybe. She's like, why do you want to put yourself through that? Like you keep trying to win, you don't win, like you really want to go through that again. But when her uncle like kind of pitched that idea, that was probably like towards the end of 2008. So like maybe for a couple months, I was like kind of just thinking about it, and I'm like, all right. And then I got on the internet. I'm like, okay, how do you start a blog? And then I was like, okay, what would I call a blog? I'm like, well, perhaps a journey. And I'm like, 3Ds, dedication, desire, discipline, 3D muscle journey. Like that sounds pretty cool. So that's what I did. I started my own personal blog, 3D Muscle Journey. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to, at the time, I would just write what I did for the training week. I would write what the cardio I did and just put like my diet. And I would do that once a week, just do a small little blog. I put a couple pictures, maybe a video, and I would post it once a week. Barely got any traction at first, but I didn't care. I was having fun doing it. It was therapeutic for me. I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm putting something in the world that's positive. And it's not just about me, because all those other preps was all about me. So like I want to be a pro, or I want to win shows, or I want notoriety. It was all about me. Where this one was like, I'm actually doing it for someone else potentially. And I remember people when they started catching on to it, they're like, why don't you talk down on like the enhanced side? Like, why don't you just like, it's this or that? Like, and the approach, I remember seeing something, I think it was Mother Teresa. I think there was a quote I saw or something like that, where it said, it takes more energy to fight something than it does to, I guess, uplift and promote something. So that was always my approach, was like, okay, I'm talking about my blog, but now I want to expand this blog to something a little bit different. So I started what I called the natural movement. So what I would do is I would take athletes such as yourself and say, hey, submit a picture, here's some questions, answer this, and I would just give you some attention. Like, here, this is Sam, this is what he does. Like he's an awesome natural bodybuilder. So that kind of helped me to, again, reinforce like my why. It just deepened. It's outside of myself. And then when I met the other guys during that prep, it was like, hey, let's start this. Like you got this blog, you already established that. We got a big following on the bodybuilding.com forums. Let's start coaching. And so, I mean, it took a little while for me to kind of say yes to that, but eventually I did. And so now we expanded. It's like now we're promoting natural bodybuilding. Now we're helping others through coaching. And that gave me a lot of purpose, whereas like it felt really good to give back as opposed to just trying to take from the sport, for me, for selfish reasons.
Yeah. Well, I think that correlation of going outside of yourself, like it sounds like it was a turning point prior to that point where it was like, okay, I've got to win for me,
Mm-hmm.
to now I'm doing this other bigger thing that's involving everyone. It's encouraging and inspiring other people, informing, educating other people. That was from what you described also the time that you met the other 3DMJ guys, the other coaches. But it's just, I think that it's not it can't be a coincidence that there's a correlation between being more outward thinking and you actually doing better and having a more enjoyable time, all of that kind of happening at the same time, it just can't be a coincidence. And it also makes sense too, because this is more shining light on like how I know of you now, and I think how most people, the other athletes that you coach, and also the people that know you through 3DMJ podcast and the other interviews that you've done, that's how they know of you, is more of having this kind of outward approach where you're thinking about the other priorities in your life, like family and
Mhm.
work and other athletes and so on and so forth. So this is shaping up. This is all making sense.
No.
Um, okay. So, and this is also the year that you won your pro card too, 2009. All this is happening at
Yeah.
the same time. Did you find that? Like there was, at least from how you described, and hopefully I'm not assuming too much, but if you're having like a more enjoyable time, or at the very least it wasn't as stressful, like there wasn't as much pressure on your shoulders, like did you find that it was showing on your physique? Like was your physique like looking tighter? Were you looking bigger? Like was there a physical kind of a change that was happening on top of all of this? Do you think that was a part of the reason that you ended up winning, or was it just like you happened to win at the same time as all of these other kind of mindset changes were happening? Or what can you
Mhm.
say on that?
I think the stress levels during the prep process were a lot lower than they were in years past because I wasn't having that self-imposed pressure to win. Like the goal of that prep was not, of course I'm trying to get shredded and do well, it goes without saying, but it wasn't like pro card or bust, because that's how the past preps were. Win or go home mentality. So this one was like, okay, just do the best you can to get in great shape, but priority number one is to enjoy it. And I think I really enjoyed writing a blog once a week, like putting something positive into the world. Potentially someone could benefit from it. That kept me like really driven and focused. Um, but yeah, overall stress level was huge. Like I was just so much more at peace in the process because I was actually enjoying the journey. That's why I call it 3D muscle journey. Because before it was never, I always felt like I wasn't doing enough, if that makes sense. Like before, it'd be like you do a hard day of prep. At the end, you're like, you question, like, oh, I could have got one more rep, or I could have did a little bit better on the diet, or I could have been a little better today. Instead of at the end of the day going, yeah, I worked pretty hard. I did everything I could, and I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna enjoy what I just accomplished. So I did a lot more of that in 2009. I was enjoying the actual process a lot more, feeling satisfied at the end of the day. And in return, I mean, yeah, I ended up winning 2 pro cards, which is like cherry on top of a sundae. But that wasn't like the ultimate goal of the prep. It was to actually enjoy. And even backstage, like in past preps, I wasn't there to make friends or to mingle. I mean, I was friendly. Don't get me wrong. I wasn't a jerk backstage, but I wouldn't be like, "Hey Sam, how you doing? How's your prep?" Like I would be like, "Hey, I'm pumping up. If you happen to say hi, okay, I'll say hi." But I wasn't there to be your friend. I'm there to get what you want, and that's pro card. But in 2009, I was more open backstage. Like I'm actually going to talk with people, and that's probably the main reason I was able to like connect. I connected with Eric first because he came up to me and he's like, "Hey Jeff, blah blah blah." He's like, introduced himself, and uh, he's like, "You're on the bodybuilding.com forums." I'm like, "I don't even know what a forum is." So I mean, just long story short, we basically gravitated towards one another. Eventually, same thing with Alberto. Brad I'd already met a couple of years back, but kind of lost touch. But then we got back in touch, and we all shared the same passion, the same values. We all wanted to better the sport and help people, and it's still that way today. Each of our paths has changed a little bit. Obviously, we've gotten older, we've grown as individuals, but we still have the same drive and passion to help people.
Right.
So it's just, yeah, I mean, it's just like that is probably the most proud accomplishment in bodybuilding for me has been what we've been able to do with 3D Muscle Journey. I've run pro shows, I've gotten top 5 at Worlds. It's like, those are great individual accomplishments I'm proud of, but just kind of knowing like how many people we've helped either directly or indirectly is really awesome to hear when you get a message from someone across the world and says, hey, I watched that video and I was able to compete for the first time and I did pretty good. It's like, that's an awesome feeling. So I just look at like success in bodybuilding as more than just like, I won a pro card, or I got elite level conditioning, or I got top 5 at worlds. And sometimes online, you see more of that. You just see the elite athletes.
I wanted to quickly interrupt this episode to let you know about the work that I do. I work full-time as an online physique coach, helping my clients to accomplish their muscle growth and fat loss goals by optimizing their approach to strength training and nutrition. I've been doing this work since 2018 and love helping my clients to transform their bodies and ultimately their lives. If you've been considering getting some help with accomplishing your own physique goals, you're invited to hit the link in the description below to learn a little bit more about the work that I do and how I can help you. You can even use that link to schedule a free video consultation with me. If you have any questions about my coaching or how I can help you, just email me at sam@jadeathletics.ca. All right, let's get back to the episode.
You don't see like, the blue collar guys that are maybe putting in different type of work that are just successful in their own ways. It's just not as celebrated as much because it's, everybody wants to see the freaky stuff.
Yeah, it's its own special skill set to be able to do a prep, train, diet when you're like working some kind of like a 9 to 5 or some other career, for example, that's nothing related to bodybuilding. You've got a family at the same time. You're trying to make time for your friends as well, and it takes a special skill set to be able to hold all of those things together and still have a good time
100%.
and to make it all work, even if it doesn't look as freaky on Instagram. It's a pretty cool skill set to have.
Let me share a story. I think this could help a lot of people who are maybe more blue collar, because let's face it, you get to the world levels, you have to have good genetics. Like you have to be born with certain genetics to get to that elite level. It's no different than any other sport. You got the Michael Jordans of the world, right?
Yep.
But I had an athlete about 10 years ago, and he was obese. He was over 400 pounds. He removed a lot of that weight on his own before I started working with him. But when I started working with him, he was probably around 230, maybe 240. And his goal was to get on a bodybuilding stage. Like he wanted to like get on stage to, to celebrate, the journey. And I'm like, let's do it. So, long story short, got him down to about 180 pounds. Not shredded by any stretch of the imagination, of course the skin was a little bit, stretched out, a little loose. So I actually went to the show. It's a local show. So I go to the show, I'm in the audience prejudging, and the people around me when I'm sitting there were laughing at him. And of course I'm like fuming inside, but I'm trying not to, I don't want to voice anything. So I just sat there. So we did the prejudging. Come back for the finals. This is back in the day when they did prejudging and finals. Come back in the finals, and when he was getting ready to do his posing routine, the MC shared his backstory. He got a standing ovation. So to me, what's frustrating when I see people who are like, not instead like they're not giving enough credit to the blue collar bodybuilders, or maybe they're kind of talking down on them or what have you. It's like, you don't know the story. Like when each bodybuilder goes on stage has a story, has their own path that they've had to take. You don't know what they've had to go through to get there. So I think every person up there should be celebrated. And that's why for me, I don't put a ton of stock into the placings. And I know it's like some people are like, come on, man, like it's important. I am competitive when I'm up there. I want to try to place as high as I can. But it's also the way I view bodybuilding, especially the last few years. It's more of a art than it is an actual like competition. If you think about it, you can't control the other people, the judges. Yeah. You control your journey. You put the best you up there. That should be celebrated outside of just like a number you get on a medal. So I think it's just important that people, like, if you are prepping, just don't let your fear and those types of anxiety around placings or how you might fit in. It's like, just get up there and express your art. You only live once. If this is something you want to do, it's a bucket list, do it.
Yeah. That's a really great it's a really cool story, and it's such a good it paints such a good picture of what's true, in that it's really easy to like look at a single photo, or like look at someone on stage that's only on stage for like you only end up being on stage for a very short time at any given competition anyways. And it's, I mean, what do? You judge the person on the day, and that's it. You don't get to see what their whole story is.
Mm-mm.
But I think, to your point, it's helpful to just acknowledge that everyone does have a story behind that, like the 10 minutes on stage that they have, or the Instagram photos that they're posting or whatever.
Yeah.
They have had obstacles that they've had to face to get to
It's
where they are.
it's a little tough, because some people are very quick to judge. Like, it kind of reminds me, like, my past preps, where it's like I didn't do enough today, and instead of like celebrating what I accomplished, I'm like quick to just negatively judge what I should have been doing or could have did more or something like that. So it's like sometimes when we're judging physiques on stage, our first reaction is like, oh, he needs to work on this. He needs to work on that.
Yeah.
Instead of like thinking about, like, well, damn, he's got a pretty good physique. He's pretty lean, he's symmetrical. It's the best shape he's probably ever gotten in his life. But we're so quick to just pinpoint the negatives. Like, I think it's important that you take a moment to actually like appreciate what you accomplished in that moment, give it some time, then reflect, and then go, okay, now I need to work on these things to make myself better. So I think sometimes, like, whether we're doing it to ourselves or we're doing it to others, we're just very quick to point out what needs to be improved.
Right.
I'm not
That's the
saying I'm not saying not to look for those things, but I think it's also should be celebrated what you have accomplished in the moment.
Right. No, that's really, really interesting. That also, I can see that in your coaching too, like just from my experience being coached by you, and that like something that you've done, I found with me, is you're really good at like looking at my personality, the things that like seem to work well with me, but also the things that maybe I benefit from changing so I could do even better. You it seems like what you've done is you've taken a look at, okay, this is what's working well with him, but maybe we can like do some of these things instead and just make things even better, but without like trying to destroy the whole picture that's already there and starting from scratch.
Yeah.
And it's
You,
I know it's a little bit different, but I can kind of see, I think I can see like a pattern in your way of thinking that makes a lot of logical sense, and I think it works really well. And I can speak to that approach has really positively impacted me, like decreasing my training volume a bit, and my training frequency a bit, and all of that's been super helpful. It's all worked, and it's kind of, I think, a reflection of how you kind of think
it's
about things.
yeah, it's like you, as a coach, like, I've learned to like learn people's personalities, their tendencies, and obviously areas that they do well. You're like, okay, let's not touch that because they're doing really well there. They're enjoying it. But there's other areas you're like, you see, like, okay, this can be maybe a little bit better. And some people are just very accepting to change. Like, oh yeah, no problem. Let's go ahead and just overhaul it. I'm fine with that. But then there's other people who are like, I don't know about that. So it's like you have to, like, okay, you can't just turn everything upside down on them. It's
Yeah,
like, okay,
it's like
let's just change one little thing, and then you get exposure to it, and you get to see, okay, did that go good, don't go good, you're like, okay, it went pretty well, I'm okay with this. Like, okay, now I can start layering a little bit more there. So I can tell you, with you personally, I'm like, okay, you need to go from like here on the volume down to here. But if I were to go there to there, you would be like, no.
the
So
walls come up. Yeah,
yeah.
but yeah, totally. It's like you're really good at like it works great. It's like almost like a bit of a negotiation where
Yeah.
you're, trying to ease things back a little bit. And then when, like for me, it's like, oh, that actually works. And then I get to see that it works, and then trust builds, is reinforced even more. And then,
Yep.
it's easier to keep making beneficial changes.
Yeah.
I know my walls have gone down over the past few years.
Yep.
Um, So
I
it's worked
learned a
really,
lot
really well.
through Eric, basically. Like when I first met Eric, he saw right through me. Like I was very closed in, didn't really express myself too much. Introvert, didn't really have deep conversations with too many people. So he got me to open up. He actually took me to a men's group because his uncle is a counselor. So he's like, "Come on,
Right.
Jeff, let's go there." I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know if I want to do that, man." Come on, come on, I'll go. And so I ended up going with him, and I was quite shocked how much I talked to a bunch of strangers. Like I just opened up. It was weird. Like I felt super comfortable. I just started opening up, and when we came out of that, I felt so much better. And so
Interesting.
he's just ever since we formed our team, he's always encouraged us to be very open, to communicate whether things are going good or, maybe it's a little bit turbulent. It's like, that's how you continue to move yourself better or forward rather, and get better.
Right.
So there's times now, like within our team, like I'm the one that's telling people we need to like open up, we need to communicate more. And I've kind of moved our team forward. Like I'm the communicator now, which is quite interesting because it was the complete opposite before. So
Interesting.
yeah, some of the topics we're getting into is like it's more than just bodybuilding. It's like just on the human level.
Yeah. Well, I'm wondering if I can ask you actually a little bit about the origin of 3DMJ and what that looked like when you and Eric and Brad and Alberta, like when you guys all got together and you started this coaching company. I'm curious to know what that looked like at the beginning. So this was that around the 2009, like was it
2009.
short,
Yep.
was it like, okay, so that was around the time of the formation. What did that look like? Like how were you, I want to know what your early coaching style was like, but maybe before that, how were people coming to you? Like, were you, because you mentioned Eric brought up like the bodybuilding.com
Yep. So
forums and like you were starting to share your own journey. Like, how are
mhm.
people coming to you and how are people having the desire to work with you?
So I started the 3D Muscle Journey blog in January of 2009. That was the start of my prep. You fast forward to the summer, like late, like early fall, just meeting those guys backstage. That's where we started really forming like friendships. And, Eric and Alberto had pretty large followings on bodybuilding.com. Like they had a pretty big audience there. I had the blog, so I had like, the website. I had a smallish following. I don't know how many there were, but it wasn't that big. And then Brad was also on the forums as well, but it was myself, Eric, and Alberto that kind of got together, and those two pitched the idea to me about coaching and things like. I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I got a job. Like, I don't really want to do that. And plus, in my brain, I'm like, who are these two young kids? I had just met them. Like, I'm gonna go into business with them. I don't know them that well, so I was like very reluctant to dive into it. But at the time, I was also losing my job at the auto plant of 16 years because they're going to close the plant down because the recession hit. So everything took a shit. So I had an opportunity to go to school and learn physical therapy as far as being an assistant. I'm like, okay, I can help people that way. But then they were like, hey, let's do this coaching thing. And I'm like, well, when I came out of high school, I kind of just took a job that I didn't really want to do. And I got sucked into this auto job for 16 years. So I didn't
Right.
want to make that mistake again. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to chase my passion versus just like doing something I don't want to do, but just pays the bills. So I went all in with them. And then we brought Brad in, and we started officially coaching in 2010. Berto was already coaching before that on his own. But as a team, we started in 2010, and we started with a sponsorship. So we gave two athletes free coaching, and that's how we started. We weren't actually getting paid in the beginning. It's like, let's get these two guys, let's prep them, let's do good work there, word of mouth. It started a snowball. My first official contest prep athlete was until 2011, because 2010, my role was all the administrative work, all the back end stuff, website, administrative, and then I would do the posing coaching for their athletes because I was really good at posing.
Interesting.
So I did that for about a year. And then in 2011, I had my first prep athlete, Louis Stoner, who was my first follower on the 3D Muscle Journey blog, which is kind of cool.
That's cool.
So
That
I
is
prepped
really cool.
him. That was his first ever prep. So I took him through a prep. He did really well. And then I just started getting, so my fear with coaching, to be honest, was like, I don't want to mess people up. Even though I had all this experience, I'm like, just don't want to mess people up. I don't want to make a mistake. So it was fear of making mistakes. Then I kind of realized like, I just got to get my feet wet. And that's what Alberto and Eric and Brad were telling me. Like, you just got to dive in. You just got to get in there and do it. So it's like, okay. So I started doing that in 2011.
That is something I was curious about was if you felt initially, if you had any kind of like imposter syndrome, if you just finished a career in the auto plant, I think you mentioned, and then you'd already done all of these preps, but it wasn't like you didn't have a formal like university kinesiology degree or anything like that.
No,
So it was, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you didn't coach anyone prior to this point. So I'm wondering if, like, I know for me, when I first started coaching people, like I definitely had imposter syndrome. Like, who is this guy? Like, what do I know?
Yeah.
Did you ever, you mentioned that there's a fear of messing up your first client or maybe your first couple of clients. Was that in combination with like having imposter syndrome, or was it just like you really cared, like you wanted to just make sure that these guys were...
I didn't lack confidence in my knowledge around bodybuilding. It was more so just the fear of like being responsible for someone else and making, like, they just don't find success. Like something I potentially did that just they didn't find success in doing. It was like a fear of just messing somebody up.
Yeah.
But then, then through conversations, like, no, you have so much to offer. Like, so they, in a sense, gave me that confidence to actually coach. So I was like, yeah. But I would say, yeah, I mean, there's like, even now, like, I don't have a college degree. Like some of the terminology, I'm like, what's that word? I got to go in there and look up the word. What does that mean? Like Eric will say some words. I'm like, what? Can you speak English, please?
Yeah.
But I can say this, that my ex-wife, when she was a kid, like my ex-father-in-law, his next door neighbor didn't have a high school education. Basically, he went up just to the 7th grade, but he owned a cement company and he was really well off. He ended up eventually moving to a house up on the hill in San Jose. So that kind of like, if I look at that, I'm like, okay, do you need a formal education? Like, yeah, it helps, right? But it's also like, because he was in the trenches working his way up, like he learned a different way.
Yeah.
I've just learned a different way. Like, that's why I don't regret going through all the hardships through my 20s and in my 30s, because in my opinion, like, experience is going to be your best teacher. The mistakes are going to be your best teacher if you're paying attention to it. So like I draw off of that experience now, but I also have learned to draw off of like the research, the science, and other people. Like, I'll probably rewatch this podcast, because there might be something in there that you might have said. I'm like, ooh, I'm going to tuck that away because that could be a seed or a tool I can use with someone else down the line or with myself. So you have to be very open to all avenues of learning, not just like, okay, it has to be this formal thing and I have to have like all these letters after my name.
Yeah. That's a pattern that I think I've recognized with like bodybuilding coaching and just bodybuilding athletes. Some of the highest level athletes in the world don't necessarily have extra letters behind their names or college degrees, kinesiology degrees, physiotherapy. There are some amazing coaches that do have that, but I mean, Eric's ultra formally
100%.
educated and he's amazing, but at the same time there's amazing coaches that have experience from being in the trenches that are arguably the best coaches out there, or they have an education in something that's completely unrelated to anything related to lifting weights. And even like, I think from this is just speculation because I don't have a kinesiology degree or any kind of a degree in that kind of world whatsoever. But from what I've learned, and I could be wrong on this, is that even if you have a kinesiology degree, that doesn't always seem to directly translate into bodybuilding or lifting weights necessarily, not directly anyways. So I think it depends on the specific context, but no, it's really interesting to me.
So to me, I see, like, there's no way I could think this way as far as like when I was in my 20s or even my 30s, because I just didn't have enough experience. But now it's like I see bodybuilding as there's the science to it, there's the research to it, there's a skill component to it, and there's also an art component to it. And I think sometimes, whether we're coaches or we're just observing or putting content online, we're only coming from one of those perspectives. Like, you got the science camp, right? Like, you got to optimize your training because of this. And then you have maybe someone who's just strictly going through the art and then shits on the science. It's like, well, you're kind of missing this part. And then the skill component as well. But you learn how to blend all three of those, like, you become a far superior bodybuilder. Because there is an art form to, like, Charles Glass is probably a good example of the art form, right? Like, you've probably seen the way he trains people, like you see things online. It's like he's not giving you the correct terminology to things. He's telling you, hey, shift your elbow this way because you're going to feel it here more. And I think some people will shit on Charles Glass because of that. Like, he's not like, it's not science or whatever, but there is some validity to that. Like, I do that with my training all the time within myself. Like, I'll nuance exercises a certain way just based off of feel. And that's more of an art. And then the skill components, like moving things A to B really well, making sure you're going to failure really well, learning how to pose really well. Those are skill components. Like, so there's a lot going on in bodybuilding, but sometimes we just get into these camps and, we end up like just limiting ourselves.
Yeah, I definitely get that. And that's where it can be easy to become dogmatic too. Like, you fall
100%.
into one of those camps and then you kind of get stuck with just sticking with that one thing. It can be easy to fall into that. I've fallen into that before, like 6+ years ago, stuck in the science-based world and refused to look anywhere else. Something I want to ask you, this is a little bit of a digression, but
That's a big
I'm
word,
really
but I know
yeah, too
what
big
it means. That's a big word.
it's too big for my non-kinesiology degree educated background. But anyways, I'm really curious, if you don't mind me asking, that time where you guys first formed 3DMJ and you left your prior career at the auto plant.
I
You
didn't
were
leave it. It left me. They closed the
okay, well,
plant down. Yeah.
okay, even more interesting.
Yep.
So, like, there's a big shift there, and you're building 3DMJ from scratch. Even your guys' first couple clients were like, it was a scholarship. They weren't even,
Yep.
it was free.
Yep.
So you're doing free work. What was that like from like a stress perspective and like a financial perspective, building a company from scratch that initially there's not really any revenue coming in,
Yeah.
from having a stable or I'm assuming a stable career up until that point? What was that like? Talk about like the fear of unknown. Like what was,
Oh yeah,
how did
because
you
for
kind of
me
manage that?
personally, personally at the time, my ex-wife lost her job first because she was in the mortgage industry, so that took a shit first. Then the auto industry took a shit, so I lost my job. So here we are losing our job. Plus, we're basically having issues in the marriage. We're getting ready to end the marriage. I had to file bankruptcy, lost
Wow.
the house, lost everything. So it was like all this was happening at the same time.
Wow.
And I'm like, cool, okay. I decided to do this coaching thing, but I'm making zero money. So it's like, okay, we're going to have to start making some money here. So the first year, I remember like when we first started taking paid clients on, I remember like I made $400. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. I made $400 doing this hobby thing, right? Something I absolutely love doing.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with Brad. Like, I can't believe we made $400. It was like super pumped for it. But it was our passion and love for the sport and for helping people. And we just kept going. And, word of mouth, get a couple new clients, get a couple more, get a couple more. So the first year was just taking a while to kind of build clientele up and build somewhat of an income, still not enough to live on. So I was hurting. I was hurting for about a year or so, thank goodness for my basically payout once the plant shut. I got some money from that. So I was like, okay, I can live on this a little bit, but I need to get this other thing to kind of get up there. So first year it was stressful. And then the Matt Ogus era boomed because we were coaching Matt Ogus and he was just getting on YouTube and doing his thing. And then of course he did really well. And everybody's like, who's coaching you? Well, 3D Muscle Journey's coaching you. So all of a sudden we got a boom of athletes because of the Matt Ogus era. Yeah.
That's really cool.
It was, what's crazy is that we had a waiting list of about 400 athletes, and I'm not joking.
Oh my, wow.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
Yeah. But at the time, if you think back that area, 2011, 2012, coaching was just starting to kind of catch fire.
Right.
So we got into it at the right time because competitively there wasn't too many prep coaches out there that are like, established. You had like Lane Norton, Dr. Joe, those types of people. And then it's like, you didn't really have a team. It was like, oh, here's this 3D Muscle Journey team. And then you get Matt Ogus coming in and there you go. Caught fire.
What was that? What was that like? So is like that first year and a half struggle, stressful. You're getting some word of mouth coming in. It's growing a little bit. And then you have like this explosion, 400.
It's a different stress. It's a good problem to have. It's a good problem to have, but it's a different stress because now you're like, we got to really think about systems, structure, learning how to become efficient. And I remember maybe our first year of coaching, we were very willing to help you no matter what. So it's like, get an email at 10 at night, 11 at night. Oh, I got to answer that. You get in there like answering emails. And then, once you get a full roster, you realize like that is not realistic. Like that's not even healthy really. Cause back then I remember some coaches to kind of get themselves out there and to, put them, get more interest. Like, hey, I'm 24/7 available 24/7. Like to me, it kind of sends the message of like, you're having athletes rely on you at midnight, and it's bodybuilding. There's no real emergencies in bodybuilding at midnight.
Yeah.
So you're not teaching them to be too independent if you're always constantly, thinking they need to be relying on you.
Hey Jeff, I'm hungry right now.
Yeah, it's 11 at night. Do I finish my macros off or do I just go to bed? Like, dude, just go to sleep, man. Yeah. So it's like that. I kind of realized like, okay, so I'm like, okay, as coaches, we need at least one day off. And we need to have our own, like, each coach has its own schedule. We kind of handle that, but we've kind of learned like, okay, we need to be like really good with our time. So it's just over the years, I've kind of established like my systems on my side. So that way I'm always giving quality service. And so I kind of know the amount of athletes I can take. If it starts to get over that, then I know the quality of service is going to go down. Because in order to keep your business going, you got to be able to do good quality work because that word of mouth is so valuable.
Yeah. Well, I was just, when you initially said that, I was thinking like that must have been surreal to go from like, I don't know if this is going to work. We got to make this work to like, okay, now we got so many people. We actually have to get systems together and be efficient. So I was initially thinking like, wow, that must have been so surreal. Like we're going to, we're definitely going to be, we've made a career out of this. We're going to have a living off of this for a long time.
But even then it's like that sense of security.
Yeah.
Wasn't like, I don't think it's ever been 100% for all of us, like I know there's like, oh man. Cause as if you're generating income for yourself, there's always that feeling of like,
What if?
or am I going to still get athletes coming in? Like there's always like that over your head, which is a good thing because it makes you get out there, keep putting content out, free content, keep things going that way. But there is that pressure and that stress. Even today, it's like I still have that feeling. This is 15 years later. You would think like, okay, 15 years, you guys are pretty well established, but still, it's like and it's more competitive, far more competitive out there now. Like you go on Instagram, everybody's a coach. Where in 2009, 2010, where are the coaches at? You got to find them. But now it's like it's right there. So it's highly competitive now.
Yeah. I feel like with 3DMJ, if you're a natural bodybuilder, if you don't know, like for anyone that's like a new natural bodybuilder that doesn't know of 3DMJ, like they will within like very soon at some point. And everyone else, every other natural bodybuilder probably knows of you because you've been around like since the beginning of online coaching, or like as you mentioned, like when it was catching fire, and also because of the success of all of your athletes. And I can attest to that too. Hopefully I'm successful, but but
you are. You're doing all right.
Getting there. But yeah, this is really cool to hear. I guess fast forwarding, and maybe this is a good spot to close our conversation is, so this is your right now 17th or 18th prep, somewhere up there. You described earlier some of the challenges that you're kind of facing with this prep in particular that are maybe a little bit more unique to prior preps. You also mentioned that like this it could be the prep where you, Alberto, Eric, and Brad are all potentially going to be on stage together. Cool. So what do you think? Like, do you have an ultimate goal for this prep? I think I might know what the answer or the answers might be, but I'm curious. What do you think are your main goals for this season?
Cross the finish line. That's it. Just cross the finish line, because the challenges I'm facing is like, if I can do that, that's going to be success right there. Whatever happens after that, it is what it is. Like if I get a good placing, great. If I don't, okay, it is what it is. But yeah, it's just crossing that finish line and not having any regrets, because I think I'll have regrets if I don't finish it out. But with that said, if I don't finish it out, if I decide to cut it short, I know it'll be for good reason. It won't be because I'm just quitting on myself. I'm quitting for the right reason. I think sometimes, like, because I've had failed preps, sometimes it's more inspiring to know when you should quit versus trying to force it through.
Man, that's such a good point.
I could do more damage, let's say, trying to force myself to the finish line if it's damaging like my family or friends or whatever. It's like I want to make sure that I'm finishing for the right reasons.
That's such a good point.
And yeah, I think it's just sometimes we don't want to, like, okay, look down on, oh man, why did he quit? Like I don't, like, to me that doesn't faze me. Like I would just rather quit for the right reasons, because when I have failed preps, it has been for good reason, and I usually come back from it a hell of a lot better. Like some of my best seasons were coming off of failed preps.
Right. Well, it's like it's almost a counterintuitive concept in that, like, it seems like it can be the most hardcore thing to do, to stay in the prep, even though it would be in some context sacrificing too much.
Yep.
It seems like that would be the hardcore thing to do, but it's actually the opposite. It's like the hardcore, and the hard thing to do, the more admirable thing to do would be to like voluntarily stop the prep so you can prioritize the things that are potentially more important.
Think of it like this. It's a big deload. People are scared to take, I don't want to take a deload and I'm not going to make the progress, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, what's the worst can happen? You take a week off of your training.
Yeah.
Your connective tissue feels better. You get more energized. You mentally get a little break. You're more enthusiastic about your training the following week. Same thing here. It's just on a bigger scale. It's like, man, if you're that tapped out, you're that stressed. It's like, and you're trying to just claw your way to the end, like your physique's probably not going to look the way it should anyways, but you just wasted a bunch of energy and beat yourself up even further. Now it's going to take you that much longer to recover. Same thing with training. Like, okay, I trained too many days in a row. I did this for 6 weeks straight. Now I'm like, I need more. Like that week off didn't do enough. I'm still feeling like shit. And now you need 2 or 3 weeks off. When if you would have cut it short in week 4 instead of week 6, then you would have better training thereafter.
Yeah.
That's how you sustain careers too. That's why I'm still doing it at 54, 32 years later. It's because I've learned to pace. I think a lot of people, like in the early stages, like they're just like, let's go.
Burn themselves to the ground.
Yeah, that was me in my 20s. Yeah,
that makes sense. I've been there too, for sure. I'm still learning that. Shoot, I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah.
I've got one more question that I want to ask while I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
Well, I've got you here. Something that I've heard you guys bring up in the past. I think it was Alberto that I've heard this from. It might have been you, but I think it was Alberto, and he said, "Keep the goal the goal."
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's this concept that, like, when you're in a prep, like, you're thinking about what the goal is. So for what you described, it's like, get to the finish line, make sure not to sacrifice the things that are important along the way. Make sure it's like a clean, good finish. That being said, and hopefully I'm interpreting that right. And not getting, and the flip side of that is not to get so focused on like things like food. I think he might have used that in that context, like, don't hyper fixate on like your meals and your food and like the meal after your shows. So the reason I bring this up, and the question that I'm wondering is, do you still get this feeling after you finish an entire season or finish your last competition of the season? Like, do you get this big feeling of like relief and like, okay, now I do get to have a meal where the restrictions have lifted, and it's like this amazing feeling. It's always fleeting. That's what I found for myself. It's like, it feels amazing for a couple of days, and it's like, okay, what do I do next? But do you still, yeah. But do you still get that kind of relief, kind of a feeling like the restrictions are gone for a little bit, and like, yeah,
100%. So keep the goal the goal. Like I've said it, he said it. I forget we didn't originate that. That came from somewhere else. Can't remember where we got that. But you can I guess define it different ways. Like in the food, like with nutrition, the dieting for prep and stuff, it's like sometimes you just get fixated on post show. Like, I can't wait to eat at these restaurants. It's like, no, keep the goal the goal.
Yeah.
Or it could be like when you first started prep, you're super motivated, right? You're well fueled at that point. You're like, yeah, I want to get shredded. Then through the process, halfway in, you're like, oh shit, this is hard. I'm tired. Yeah. And then you start thinking of like, you're like, oh, let me nibble on this food there. It's like, no, keep the goal the goal. Remind yourself what you said you were going to do when you first started. So you have to recalibrate yourself in a sense. So that's just a way to kind of like snap you out. Like, hey, keep the goal the goal. Like, snap you out of that funk that you're in. Post-show stuff, yeah. I mean, every season I get done, it's like, man, yeah, I'm done with that. You just get toasted. At the end, you're ready to, you're tapped out. Mentally, physically, emotionally, just tapped out. So what's interesting though is like, day after a show, you wake up and you're like, what now? Because you just lived like the last year or two of your life is dedicated to this goal. Your lifestyle is a certain way that's catered toward it. And then now you're like, what do I do? Like, this is all different. I don't have to put this on a food scale. Like, that seems weird to me. Or you're like, well, okay, that goal was over. I did all that work for just that one day. So that's why it's important. Like, for me, it's important. I always list out like my goals. It's never just one. And then my whys. Like, why do I want to do this? What's the goal? So that way, like for 2023, like the goal was to, like, competitive goal was to place top 5. Because I want to be able to do a posing routine for my son, because only the top 5 do posing routines. So that was a competitive goal. Another goal was I want my son to see me go through this process, because I want to show him what dedicated work looks like, what you can accomplish if you apply yourself. So that was part of the goal. Another goal was have fun, of course. That's probably the number one goal. I just had all these different goals, all these different reasons and whys. And I think it's important to have more than just one. Cause like young Jeff, I just want to win. And if I didn't win, we didn't talk about this stuff. But when I didn't win, depression hit. 2002, really wanted a pro card, felt like I was going to win, perfect prep, got second by a point. I was devastated. I got depressed. Didn't want to compete, didn't want to do shit for a year or two after that. Like, it just, bodybuilding to me seemed dark. But I didn't realize at the time that was my best ever physique. I didn't cheat on my diet once that prep. Like, I was so rock solid. Like, I didn't even celebrate any of that because of 1 point. That's like, to me, it's like, that's another reason why in 2009, like, I got to have fun here. So, like, post prep though, I think it's smart to not think ahead too quickly. Like, hey, okay, I just put all this energy in this prep. Let me celebrate what I just accomplished. Maybe take some time. Like, sometimes I'll take a week off of training and just decompress, enjoy other things in life, reflect, appreciate what I just accomplished. Then I might start thinking ahead, like, okay, now I feel like I can maybe plan and, like, okay, let me focus on what I need to work on and let's get training going again. But yeah, I think those are normal feelings for most of us after a season is over with, to feel like, oh gosh, it's over. Thank you. But at the same time, you're like, now what do I do? Those are all normal feelings to have.
Yeah. That's super helpful to hear. I know that I can definitely relate to that. After every show, I've always had that like sigh of relief, feel really good, and then it kicks in, and not too long where it's like, okay, I'm in no man's land. What's the next thing?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I felt more down than excited, or sometimes I feel lost, and
Yeah,
sometimes I just,
you'll get that blue feeling the next. Like, I remember, like, the first world championship I ever did, it was a 2011 Norton Cup. I got 7th out of 11. Didn't place top 5. I was in Washington. I flew all the way back home to California, got home, and I remember getting into my door, and this was when my ex-wife and I we finally, like, went our own ways. So I did that show. The first time I did a show without having a wife. Came home, got to my house. It was quiet. It was empty. And I'm like, now what? I'm here by myself. And I remember it too. It was like Halloween. And I was eating Reese's peanut butter cups, just feeling very empty. It was a crazy feeling. Yeah, I just come off this world championship. I was running a high. I had a great time. Went with Alberto over there. We had a great weekend. And then I got home and it was just empty.
wow.
It was very
Wow.
challenging. Yep.
Well, okay, I gotta know.
Yeah.
I don't want to end here. I want to know that now that you bring it up in that specific context, and I'm sure that this principle applies to past preps too. So we don't have to talk about it in too much detail, but in this exact context, how did you get through that? How, like, that slump or that feeling of emptiness? Like,
That was
can you yeah,
tough,
can you talk on
man.
that?
Yeah, I relied on my training. That was my therapy. I'm in this empty house, and like, I was married with my first wife for 20 years out of high school.
Right.
So it's like you're with this person more than half of your life, then all of a sudden you're coming to an empty house. Oh yeah, that was really tough. So I was leaning on my training. I was leaning into 3D muscle journey, trying to keep myself busy with that. And I had, like, someone like Brad, like I remember New Year's Eve. This was like flash forward to like 2 months later. I'm sitting in this empty house, and he's like, Jeff, I don't want you to spend New Year's Eve by yourself. So he actually left his family to come hang out with me and stay the
Wow.
night. Yeah, so I wouldn't break in the new year by
Wow.
myself. So
Wow.
to me, 3D muscle journey is more than just bodybuilding or coaching athletes. It's like those are my brothers. It's actually my family.
Yeah.
So
That's amazing.
yeah, so it's like the world championships, the top 5, like that stuff. It's like, yeah, it's cool, but at the end of the day, no one remembers where you place. No one cares if you think about it. Like, no one knows I was junior Mr. Fremont in 1993 unless they listen to this podcast. It's like no one cares. And then, but when you're done, you're ready to leave the world. Like, you're not going to think, oh yeah, I took fifth at Worlds or fourth. You're going to think probably about the people. You're going to think
Yeah.
about how you spent your life, who you shared it with. Probably some regrets too, I would imagine. So it's not going to be the materialistic type stuff or the medals and all that.
It's crazy. It's like all of this happening, the formation of 3DMJ and you like forming them as a family, not just friends, but like, geez, Brad came over, like he came and spent New Year's Eve with you. Like, that's just crazy. And none of that would have happened unless you took the plunge, the mindset shift
Yep.
of
As part of it. Yep.
instead of thinking of like, hey, I just got to win for me. Like this, I got all this pressure on myself so I can get these titles and get the pro card. It all came from shifting your mindset, your perspective to thinking more outward and um doing almost like doing a service, not just for yourself. Like, you're still trying to win, but like it was more of like, I want to have fun and I want to like involve more people in the process, educate, and so on and so forth. And none of what the family that you've formed would have come into fruition unless you'd made that initial mindset shift, which
No.
I think it's really helpful to get to hear that and to get to hear you shared like the whole story. So anyways, I think that's a good place to wrap up the conversation. Is for your preference, where, if someone's looking to work with you, is the best place to like look directly at your website, or what links can I include in the video description here? What's the best
Mhm.
way to reach out to you?
The website, 3dmusclejourney.com. Go coaching there. I think all coaches, we use the same philosophy, same approaches. So I think, well, regardless of what coach you get, you're going to be in good hands. And usually, like, if there's something that I don't know, I'm going to like refer out. I'll ask the other coaches, hey, I got this situation here. So we pull from each other. We pull from each other's education experience. So you'll be in good hands either way.
Yeah, I can attest to that too. Cool. Thanks so much for this, Jeff. It's been awesome.
It
I
was
really
awesome.
appreciate your time.
Thank you for
And
having me.